Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to installment number 13 of the K&R and Scenic Valley Railroad build. If you recall, in the last installment, I got the peninsula framed up. This week, I will be adding the lake bed and the road bed. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get busy. Well, today's task is to get the sub-road bed and the lake bed done on the peninsula. Before I came out here, I spent some time to get a plan together. I have drawn out what it needs in the way of sub-road bed. I already have the long curve bit for the end cut. I did that when I was last making helix pieces. I think the first thing I'm going to do is get most of the lake done. That is an 85-inch radius around the front, and although it's only about 14.5 to 15 inches before the start of the roadbed for the track, I'm going to make that 16 inches wide, so I've got some overlap, because the plan calls for a retaining wall along the edge there, and obviously I want a nice firm foundation for it. Now I'm going to do the lake bed out of 1/2-inch plywood, because that will have the dual effect of giving me a nice firm anchor point for the fascia. And that 85-inch radius curve goes all the way past the end of this frame. So I'm going to put a full-length piece on, and then once I've cut that, the rest of that piece will be small enough to handle on the table saw and rip it into the sub-road bed strips that I need. So let me start with that, and I will check in with you again later. Don't go away. Well, it is quite straightforward marking out a perfect arc on the plywood. I start out with an 8-foot long strip of plywood, which will eventually be used for benchwork framing, but for now it's going to be my trammel. I have drilled a hole for the screw 1 inch from the end and close to the edge. I raised it up on a block just so that I don't have a problem with it binding along the edge. And then at the other end I have cut a notch with a half-round rasp at 86 inches, because with a 1-inch adjustment at the other end that gives us an 85-inch radius, and that makes a good guide for the pencil to give me a perfect arc. There it is, all the way along the plywood. So the portion towards me on the outside of the curve will be my lake bed, although there'll be some offcuts in the corners that I can cut away. And then the bit in the middle I will use for sub-road bed. Here's another way of marking out a piece of curved sub-road bed. Because I have this offcut that will be awkward to find a center, I've started off with one of my curved templates which I pre-cut years ago. This one is the 54 inches, which means that it's 52 on the inside, which is the radius I desire, and I want it to be about 6.5 inches wide. So I got a scrap of wood which is 4.5 inches wide, and then I just use that as a gauge, put my pencil against the outer edge of that and drag it along with the other hand. Just as easy, just as good. It depends upon the situation which method I use. Of course, if I had a larger radius bar, I would use that, but I don't. 54 is my biggest one. Okay, so I have all these sub-road bed pieces cut and laid out in the right places. Around the end curve I've also marked where it crosses the joists. I've made the two pieces over this side a full 8 inches wide, because there is a long gentle curve and it gives me more tolerance. I think I'm going to have to go inside the helix and get that piece continued through the supports there before I cut anything here, because at the moment I still have plenty of wood. What I don't want to do is guess where I have to cut it and then make it too small. I now have this awkward piece of sub-road bed threaded through the helix, and I have the first 8 feet or so of the straightforward pieces just about finished installed. I've still got 2 risers missing. Obviously there's cross braces in the way at the moment, but now that I have this sub-roadbed installed, it will keep the benchwork straight. So I should now be able to remove these diagonal braces as soon as I come out after lunch. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, as you can see, I have stopped doing the roadbed about 2/3 of the way down the other side. I've got the lake bed in, and now I am working from this end. The reason for that being that this side of the peninsula is on a downgrade. I'm not 100% certain where the grade ends, so the easiest way to do it is just to work my way down from the start of the helix back down until I get to the right height. If we come back around this side, I have a couple of spacers. Here's one, and here's the other one. These are exactly the right height to put on top of the ribs, and then the risers going beside it, and that will gauge the right height. So I will just keep on working my way down the grade until I end up this far above the frame. Well, I think this is enough fun for one day. I have got the roadbed, or rather the sub-roadbed in all the way around. There's a riser missing here because that's under the splice plate. I'm just going to leave that glue to set overnight. All the other risers are in. The bridge piece through the helix is just temporarily resting in place, but it is cut to size and fits perfectly. The grade is level around here to about where the Sharpie is. And then the vertical curve is about 3 feet long. And then I have just under a 2% grade leading all the way up to the helix. This piece of sub-roadbed is just hanging in space. Ultimately there's going to be a bridge in there. I have to plot the track center lines and then work out exactly where it goes. And then I will cut risers to go just behind the bridge abutments. So that will have 2 more supports, and then it'll be nice and firm like the rest of it. So don't go away, I will check in with you again tomorrow. Well, today is Wednesday, March 2nd. I have already removed the clamps from the joints in the sub-roadbed on the peninsula and backed out all the temporary screws. The task for this morning is to get all the miscellaneous framing finished in this area. You'll see corners like this and these 245s at the end of the peninsula that need curved pieces of plywood to support the fascia. I've also got a missing riser. I had clamps in this area yesterday, so I didn't put that riser in, although I have cut it. Here it is. So I'm going to put that in. Then I'm going to mark out the guidelines for the track, not actually the center lines, but it'll be the edge of roadbed. And then I have to finish that bridge across there through the helix. Well, I have all the former pieces to hold the fascia all the way along, top and bottom, so that when I get to the fascia it will just go on easily and firmly without any wobbling, because wobbly fascias really look like crap. It's worth taking the time to get them on with nice straight runs and smooth curves, a bit like laying track. I have also plotted the curves around this end. Note that this is not track center lines, it is the outside edge of the foam roadbed. This contraption in the middle allows me to use the trammel with a nail in the center. I should have marked these curves when I laid out the roadbed, but I didn't think about it then, so I've done it now. The important thing was that I remembered to do it before installing the backdrop, because then it had been very difficult. Note that I have extended the curved lines well beyond the end of the curved track. That makes it a lot easier to plot the easement and the subsequent straight. And of course that is my next job. I have one more curve to plot around here, and that's easy because I will just use both sides of my largest radius bar, 52 and 54, making sure that I put a 1/4 inch spacer on the outside of the template so that I end up with 2 1/4 inch track centres. And then once I've done that, the straight bits are easy. Well, I have just cut a whole bunch of foam roadbed. I think I've cut enough for the whole layout, but I might need some more. The next task is to install it around this curve. I also have to make an adjustment here. The track is coming out from under the helix at slightly the wrong angle. So what I'm going to have to do is push a drywall tool in under the roadbed here, pry it up, and just start to ease it over just a little bit. Well, it turned out to be completely impossible to peel up the foam roadbed. So what I did was cut back the track about 6 or 8 inches, and then I cut the foam out, and when I pulled it up, it even peeled up to the wood. So I certainly don't need to worry about how well it's sticking. And now that I've gone back a few inches, I've got plenty of opportunity to start putting a little bit of a curve in. Well, that is all for this week. In the next instalment, I will take care of the backdrops for the peninsula, and they are quite involved because it's the only means of supporting the upper deck. And I hope to see you back then, because I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. So I'm just going to sign off here. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.